Consider This, with host Carol Schrader, is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to UNO in the Milo Bale Student Center. My guest this week, well, he's been here before, but had a different hat on. And I'm real anxious to see his demeanor with his new hat. My guest today, Chuck Sigerson, former head of the Republican Party in Nebraska. You know him as that mostly, and has been on this show as part of, well, the favorite shows of the students that work the cameras here, the Ann and Chuck show, or the Chuck and Ann show, the two state, you know, Ann Boyle, the Democratic chair, and Chuck, and she's, you know, stepping down, you've stepped down. It's a different world out there in Nebraska's political universe.
Well, you know, I miss those days somewhat because Ann and I had a good time, and it was truly a great experience.
Now you are on the Omaha City Council. Not only are you on the Omaha City Council, but you are its new president, which is kind of unusual for a, you know, just getting there to be elected president. But things have changed on the council.
The council is totally different than it was just less than 6 months ago. I think the new council is mature. I think they know what their job is, what their role is, and you'd have to be blind not to see the public express the displeasure of the city council by removing 5 people. Those are probably good people, but the council had, I think, gotten under the people's skins, and they wanted to change, and they sure did it big time.
Well, you have been a partisan person for so very long. I mean, that was your job.
Sure.
And you would have been anyway. I mean, because you're a very staunch Republican. How do things change when you become an elected official on a consensus-building body of a relatively few people? It's not like you're in the House of Representatives with hundreds of folks.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because, first of all, yes, I was a very partisan person. That was my job as Douglas County Chairman, as a 2nd District Republican Chairman, as State Chairman for 6 years. That was my job day in and day out, every day of the year. And I did that, I think, pretty well. But when you get elected to a position, you change from partisan politics to principled politics. And you don't have to run away from your principles to stand on them. You don't have to run away from your principles when you interact with other people. All you have to do is make sure you don't take it personally when you lose a battle. Because there are battles fought every day on the city council, among the city council, the mayor, a tug of philosophies, if you will. And if you start getting personal about it, you lose your perspective. I never take politics personally, so I can stand on the principle. If I don't prevail, we move on to the next one.
Do you think that was what said, you know, throw the suckers out? Was because they took everything personally and became too personal?
I think they became obsessed with the mayor, and I think to a certain extent maybe the mayor became too obsessed with the city council. When you have a city councilman who calls a sitting mayor a sociopath, that's a little bit too much. And when that happens, you can never have a good working relationship again with the mayor again. Our goal is to make sure we have a good working relationship with Mike Fahey. I didn't know Mike before he became mayor. I knew about him a little bit.
And he was a very active Democrat.
Sure, he was.
So.
I knew about him on the other side, so to speak, but I never had to interact with him. Now we get along very well. Some people say, well, how can a former Republican National Committee man get along with a former Democratic National Committee man? And the answer is pretty easily, because we both are veterans. We both know the pitfalls of getting too enmeshed in those partisan politics, and we also know the attributes of good government. So we're both working hard to make sure we're on the same page, and I think we're doing it pretty well so far.
It's kind of ironic, though, that we had and I guess you could call the council before this more leaning Democratic, mm-hmm. but you could also just call them just more generally a little liberal. I mean, mm-hmm. some people say those
Sure.
are synonymous, but I think
not always, but in many cases.
And then we had a Republican mayor who was a very in charge kind of guy,
mm-hmm.
and many people thought that was a great attribute. Some people thought that was partially one of the chinks in his armor, but the party kind of balance was one way.
Sure.
Mayor, council. Now there is a difference in sort of political interest. The mayor is a strong Democrat. The council is a little more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, a lot more conservative, I think, and a little more Republican. But those don't necessarily.
Well, you
have to
measure
hand
it
in
this
hand.
way. We measure it this way. We're holding up the city and trying to do a good job between the two of us, between the city council and the mayor. And we're working at it. It doesn't happen automatically. And so consequently, those people who thought that Mike Fahey and I would clash immediately, I think they're going to be proven wrong, because Mike and I meet regularly. We talk. We make sure we're doing what's best for the city as much as possible. Sure, we disagree.
Okay,
Sure,
you
we have-
said something, though, that just wasn't, that used to be par for the course. The way business was conducted, business as usual, that's the mayor and the president of the council meeting
Yes.
on at least a semi-regular basis.
We do meet. We
And-
meet on a regular basis.
And as we know, were times when they'd be on opposite ends of the solar system.
Sure.
The president of the council, and there,
Yes.
and there were different ones, and
Yeah.
and the mayor.
Well, Mike and I meet regularly. We're going to continue to meet regularly. The council will meet regularly with the mayor. Also, next week we have a luncheon with the mayor, with the whole city council and the mayor. I think we're trying to do it not necessarily a new way, but a better way. The way it should have been done all along. If we do that, I think the people are going to be pretty pleased. Well, they may not always agree philosophically with what we do on the council as an issue, but I think they're going to be proud of the council for the work we're doing in the public and representing them as elected officials. Because we're going to try not to discredit them, and we're going to try not to discredit the city. Something that happened in the past.
But you didn't fool around, meaning you, the council. I went out of town for a couple of weeks to
Don't blink. We'll do something.
Kind of do an American history thing with my son and my husband, and the changing of the guard happened while I was gone. The new mayor and the council were installed, took their oaths. They undid the name of the park down along the river. They what else happened? They changed stance on the expressway. Something else happened, but I mean, it was like, whoa! You didn't waste any time saying we're here and we're action people. Or was that a vindictive kind of?
No. When you campaign for office, you make certain statements throughout the campaign. When I was campaigning in Northwest Omaha, the District 7, which I represent, I said over and over again, I back the 114th Street Expressway. I back changing the name of the park. I back eliminating the police order. I back eliminating the living wage. Those things are still coming up. And I'm just going to deliver on my campaign promises. Am I going to be at odds with the mayor on some of these things? You bet I am. But that doesn't mean we can't get along. That just means that we're going to differ on those things. We're going to take the vote. If I win or the council wins on those positions, fine. If the mayor wins on those positions, fine. We're going to get along the next day just like nothing
The
ever happens.
sun's going to come
That's
up.
it.
The city hopefully
Exactly.
will progress. Well, let's take one of the easier ones first. And easy meaning, changing the name of the park, or at least rescinding the, what was it,
Union Labor Plaza.
Union Labor Plaza. Now, I'm a card-carrying union member, but that one just kind of went over my head. As an Omahan, I just didn't think anybody'd get it when they came here.
Well,
So was this a union, non-union thing, or what did it boil
it
down
was just
to?
that I think Omaha needs a better name for a park or a plaza that is going to attract citizens to it and attract visitors to it over and over and over again for years to come. And the Union Labor Plaza was a nice idea put forward by some people who had good intentions. But the bottom line is we heard so many complaints about that name, and it was just a matter of time before we did something. And secondly, the process was somewhat abrogated. Those kids submitted names to the park board, and they were just swept aside.
And we're talking about kids.
That's right.
Grade schoolers and,
Exactly.
and such. And they said, we'll have a sort of a process.
Sure.
And that just went by the wayside.
And I think that got caught up in the games that were played between the mayor and the council, and I think that the old council claims that they asked the park board to send them the names. The park boards said they were going to do it, but they didn't do it fast enough. So the city council said, well, you're not going to do it. We'll do it for you. And pretty soon they picked the name which was not on the list of 7 originally submitted. So we're going to go back and re-examine those 7, and one of those 7 we'll pick for the names. Now, we also, just to make sure it was fair, we also made sure that Union Labor Plaza was one of those names added to the 7. So there are actually 8 names we were considering. But next Tuesday, we'll discuss the name of the park and the name of the plaza, and I think we'll have it next Tuesday.
That is the kind of thing that I think that the people of Omaha, I mean, the mayor's race was very close, but some of those council races were not, where there was an incumbent and a
Sure.
non-incumbent. And I think that politics that you just displayed in this last issue is probably the kind of thing they just saw one too many times.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the people want us to do things in the open.
So you're not going to do that stuff anymore?
No, we're not. You know, I never liked it, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican doing it, because I used to say as a Republican, we're not electing Republicans to replace one scallywag with another. We want to replace with good people. Well, what's the sense of replacing the council if we're going to do the same things the old council did? So you're going to see us be a little bit more open, a little bit more receptive to the ideas of the people.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't confess to being a scallywag. I don't know what I would have done.
Does that date me?
Boy, I think I read that in my history book.
I know.
Who were the scallywags? There were some
Yes,
in
there
our
were.
American
That goes back
history.
into the 1800s.
Okay, let's move back into the 2001. We haven't seen the end of the West Dodge Expressway.
Probably not.
And it might be the issue of whether or not we should have it, but it certainly is. It's a very busy intersection with a lot of businesses,
Sure.
and it's a state project, really,
Yes.
and you had to sign off on it or say no.
Sure.
But is it still fraught with kind of landmines?
Well, the people who are complaining about the expressway, we told them early on, we are not the place to do that. Take your case to the State Department of Roads, take your case to the governor if you want to stop the road, because it's being built by the State Department of Roads. What we did was we said, wait a minute, if they're going to build a $60 to $80 million road in Omaha, we should have something to say about it. The old council said, hey, we don't care. You build the road, don't bother us, we won't bother you. That's not good business. And I think the people of Omaha would have been very upset if the road was built and the city council could not have a single word to say about it because we didn't sign on to it. So the road was going to be built anyway. We just signed on as a partner saying, when you're starting to discuss the little things about the road, we want to sit at the table and make sure our constituents' concerns are at least addressed.
Well, as an Omahan who has lived, as all of us have, through the 72nd Street reworking, refitting debacle, not because anybody did anything wrong, it's just driving it is a mess. I keep wondering about the West Dodge Expressway and then the widening of the roughly, 84th and 90th and Dodge, that area. That's the lifeblood of Omaha, is that little strip called Dodge Street.
Sure it is, but we have to do it right. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a mess in the foreseeable future. The West Dodge Expressway was not designed to alleviate the traffic problems at 90th or 84th or anything like that. It was designed to take that massive amount of traffic that comes from west Omaha and places like that.
And just move it more efficiently.
Move more efficiently and get it out of town, or in town as the case may be. And the street on the ground level, Dodge Street, is going to be still available to all the businesses. And by the way, we're not building the roads over top of each other. You're going to be able to see the sky the whole time you're driving. So it's not going to be a dull, dingy, nasty road underneath. It's going to be nice. When you see it completed, I think you'll be pleased.
You mentioned your campaign promises, and the two that we talked about, well, we've talked about them. The two that we haven't talked about are the police auditor and the living wage. Let's talk about the police auditor. We have a police auditor now.
Well, we do, but this doesn't mean it's official forever. You know, I said in the paper the other day, the closest thing to immortality is a government program. But if you get it early, you can end it before it becomes entrenched. And we're going to look at that through the budget process. We have very big shortfall in the budget this year. You know, 180.
Oh, I want to get to that.
180,000 here, 180,000 there, and pretty soon you're talking real money. And this translates to savings to the taxpayers. After all, the one overriding issue among the taxpayers that I heard when I was campaigning was, do not raise my taxes. Do not raise my taxes. They said it over and over and over again. I think a survey I did, 62% of the people that I surveyed said that was the number one issue.
And not surprising.
Not surprising. And because property taxes are a burden. There's no question about that. So we have two choices. If you have the living wage, somebody's got to pay for it. If you have the police auditor, yes, it's only $180,000, but $180,000 here and $180,000 there.
But that isn't, it's not fair to say that's not your main issue with those two items. It may be a major consideration, but you're more philosophically opposed
yes.
to both of those.
Yeah, because I believe the Civilian Review Board can do the same job the police auditor can do, and do it, I think, in a much more efficient manner. I'm really worried that sometimes a government program will perpetuate itself and make sure that they do the work to perpetuate themselves. After all, if you do a job and you have nothing to show for it a year later, why renew the program? So I believe that the police auditor is going to have to do something in the next year to justify whether they're in existence. And that could be, what else can it be? She's compiling statistics about the police, and she's going to have to find something wrong to justify her continued existence. That's my concern.
Are you saying then that you're willing to let it go for a year?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm going to address it with the budget. I don't know if I have 5 votes, Carol. I don't know if I do, but I'm not going to bring issues up and try and vote for them just to make a point. That's a waste of everyone's time. So it's going to take 5 votes to do it, because the mayor is for the police auditor. So
you need 5 votes to override the veto.
that's right. So we have 4. I don't think you'll even see a vote, because there's just no sense making everyone jump through these hoops. But
well, this would make you, again, different than the last regime on the council, because the council was used often as a forum to just politicize, and so, I mean, that's appropriate sometimes, to get something out in the open.
Sure.
You know, let it see the light of day where it may not get that
That's
exposure.
a good debate. And when you're debating an issue, you can lay out the pros and cons. And once again, we know where the mayor is on this issue. He's for it. So we're going to probably debate it. We'll debate it mostly as a budget issue, certainly as a philosophical issue. But once again, we're not going to try and embarrass the mayor or try and cause the mayor a lot of problems on this. But if we have 5 votes, we'll vote to eliminate the auditor. If we don't, we'll try something else.
If you don't eliminate the auditor in this budget cycle or this year, then you will be looking at it very carefully in terms of what it accomplished. What
Sure.
In this case, it's a she.
Yes.
What she accomplishes.
Sure, that's only good government. So we'll do that. If we're not successful this year, we'll come back and look at it next year.
The living wage. A lot of people don't understand that does impact the city budget.
Oh, big time. Almost $1 million. The library board gave us their preliminary budget, and they showed that the additional wages having to be paid under the living wage ordinance are $325,000 in 1 year, more than they paid the year before.
Now explain why.
Well, because people who used to work at the library, the kids, the high school kids working on summers and evenings and weekends, they would be paid minimum wage or $5.50 an hour, $6 an hour. Now they have to be paid, effective July 1st, $9.34 an hour. And that's too much, but they have to pay them. And so no matter what these kids are willing to do, whether they're willing to do it for free or whether they're willing to do it for minimum wage, doesn't matter anymore. They have to be paid $9.34 an hour. And that costs the library and the taxpayers a lot of money.
Just to revisit, because the term minimum or living wage has been bandied about, but I don't know if it's still clear to people or they were there when this was the big hot topic. But this is saying that the city, in its pay of people, will pay this living wage, and will name that living wage.
Yes.
And that then there's something about contractors or something.
Yes. Anyone who contracts with the city has to also make sure they pay the living wage to any person they employ. So if you have a person who does lawns or mowing and so forth for the city, they have to pay their basic workers at least $9.34 an hour if they don't provide health benefits. If they provide health, they can do it for about $8.60. I can't tell you the exact number, but $9.34 is what we're looking at right now. And those are adjusted, by the way, every year for inflation. So next year it could be close to $10 an hour.
Let's ask this question. If you are successful, you feel very strongly about this, and the issue of wages is percolating across the country. The living wage is popping up in places. I won't say it's rampant, but it's gotten a lot of press. Since minimum wage does not go up with inflation, and I'm sure you like your salary to go up with inflation, assuming you do as good a job as you did the year before. Is there any solution to this issue?
Well, Carol, first of all, I've worked on a commission, so I only get paid for what I produce. So if I produce a lot, I get paid more. That's the American way. But secondly, I understand those that have a salary, and I know that cost of living allowances have become part of America. All you have to do is look at Social Security checks, Medicare checks, and so forth. Those things, they go up every year because of inflation. They call it COLA.
And we know that it's a chicken-egg thing.
That's right. Which is driving which.
Right, yeah. But assuming that it's a wash.
So I understand that. And the minimum wage, I have a hard time with economically and making it fit an economically sound pattern, but I accept it because it's the law of the land. But the living wage is over and above by almost $4 an hour. And the term living wage is a misnomer anyway, because no one's going to live off the living wage. But it was designed to, I guess, help certain people make more money. And my feeling is, if those people are worth more money, the market will automatically pay them for that, what they're worth. All you have to do is look at McDonald's. They do not have a living wage, but you go and try and work at McDonald's, and they're going to pay you $8.50 to $9 an hour just to start, because they can't find.
Demand.
That's right, supply and demand. And the issue of the lifeguards are thrown out. They say, well, you know, the living wage, we're paying now enough, so the lifeguards are staying. We're having a good summer. Well, hey, if the lifeguards are worth $9.34 an hour, pay them $9.34 an hour. You don't need a law to do it.
Well, you know, I was just it's funny, I just drove by Elmwood Park Pool, and I decided to sort of take a look at the lifeguards. And they were more mature. They weren't, not that lifeguards fool around, but you could just tell there was a serious demeanor there. But they were 2 or 3 years older than what I was used to seeing at Omaha pools. And I just, you know, regardless of the living wage, I said, this is a good thing. Maybe we did need.
It is a good thing,
them.
but you don't need a living wage to make it happen. All you have to do is reclassify the lifeguards, and that would be legitimate, because a lifeguard has to be mature, has to be trained, has to be alert, has to be physically fit. All these things you need in a lifeguard, medically trained as well. So you should pay them more than minimum wage. And so consequently, I believe if we do away with the living wage, that's not going to mean that lifeguards next year are going to drop that back down to $5.50. I have to believe the person that runs the parks department is going to be smart enough to understand that, hey, we pay these guys $9.50 an hour, and if we do, we'll get the good ones. If we don't do it, we'll go back to the way it was. But you don't need a law to make it happen. Common sense will make it happen, and the market should dictate what they're worth. We were just underpaying lifeguards. That's what we were doing, and we were getting exactly what we were paying for. Now we're getting better lifeguards, and we should pay more. But once again, we don't need a law to make it happen.
All right, we do have a budget problem,
Which
apparently.
we do.
The shortfall in the sales tax is a real concern. It's not a scare tactic or anything.
No, it's real.
Mayor Fahey has asked for reductions in budgets, or cutting back even farther than what the department heads had, what they felt was probably lean to begin with. What's going to happen? How's this going to shake out? Who's going to have to pay the most, so to speak?
Well, the mayor and I agree on one thing. He doesn't want to be the first mayor in 6 years. I don't want to be the first city council president in 6 years to raise taxes. So we're working.
I kind of figured that one.
And we talked this over.
That would stick with you,
Yes,
either one
it
or
would.
both of you, for a long time.
That would be very painful to someone who's complained about property
Not to
taxes
mention
my whole
politically
life.
stupid. Real, I mean, you have to look at some political realities.
But the political reality is we have more government than we can pay for right now. So we either have to lean it up or we have to cut some. And so I'm not sure where it's coming from yet. The mayor's is going to present his his preliminary budget to the city council next week. At that point, we'll start going in depth for each department, as they're already doing, looking for a way to cut the fat out of the government. Now, the department heads will tell you there is no fat in government, but you know, if everyone cuts 5%, we have a good start.
We're hearing a lot more about possibly merging parts of the city and county, Douglas County and the city of Omaha, in terms of services or departments or whatever. And the county's in financial trouble right now. Do you see a more concerted effort than in the past? That's talk about political landmines.
Oh yes,
there.
And many of us who campaigned to be on the city council were in favor of city-county mergers. Now, I've said all along, it's got to be more efficient. It has to save money. Otherwise, we shouldn't do it. And if it's not more efficient and we're not saving money, why are we doing it? But no matter what happens, those savings are not going to come for at least 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road.
So that doesn't affect this little problem we have now.
No, it doesn't, and probably won't affect it, good or bad, for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
One of the things that I do know, and you're not my city council person, but I'm going to say this anyway, is that when it comes to buying computer systems, which the city and the county are, these are expensive little deals.
Yes, they are.
These are hugely expensive. I understand that there's really politics involved in that. And can we just get one that works?
You know, that's my goal too. I came after the politics. So.
I mean, I know what happened to the State Health and Human Services Department when they got and I'm sure they attempted to get the best computer, but everybody's always trying to put their mark on it and reinvent the wheel. And
well, the first merger after 9/11 is going to be the computer MIS, and hopefully that's going to happen sometime in the very near future, because we have to standardize the computers, standardize the operating systems, and make sure that we're all on the same page. We're not running in different directions.
But I hear that's rife with disagreements in politics already.
Well, it was, but we're going to straighten it out.
You're going to smooth that one out.
Yeah, we are.
If you had to guess what Mike Fahey will say, areas that we have to cut, just really quickly, we have less than a minute. What are the areas that, just off the top of your head, I won't hold you to them, do you think that he's going to be looking at?
You can't hold me to them because I haven't a clue right now.
If you don't say them, I can't hold you to them.
That's right.
Well, good luck. Looks like it'll be an interesting 4 years.
It's really been a lot of fun so far.
And I hope that the council is as productive as you think it's going to be, because we'll all benefit.
It will be. Trust me on this one.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chuck Sigerson, here not as state Republican chair, but as the president of the Omaha City Council. Thanks for coming. And thank you for joining us on Consider This. And remember, you can find us on the internet. You can watch Chuck Sigerson say all those nice things again. So be sure to check it out. The main UNO website is unomaha.edu. Get on the site index, scroll down to television. You'll find us. Have a good one.
Consider This with host Carol Schrader is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television.